Now that we're writing functions and we are using event listeners and our code is getting a little bit more and more complex, I want to give you another tool that you can use to debug your work if things aren't going the way you thought. So what I have set up here is pretty simple. I have an event listener that's being set up on my image. So when I click on Stitch, this event listener is going to fire. Oh, let's try this one. Let's do a double click. So on a double click, just to see something different. On a double click, when we double click on Stitch, then some of the Stitch's properties show up. So I'm looking for, I've set by getting element by ID, I'm getting a hold of this image. And when the image is clicked, I'm trying to get a hold of the image's width, which we can't see. So let me go to view and toggle word wrap so we can see it. The width is 150. The alt is, what else did you expect from me but a Stitch image? But anyway, and then the source is going to be for the local file name. And then I'm making a very simple string that I'm concatenating all of those together. View, toggle word wrap. It was just a simple string to put those all together, and then I'm going to set the inner HTML of this div to those properties, which is what's showing up here. So the code is working. So, but I just wanted to show you another way that you can do some troubleshooting. So again, I'm going to go into the Dev Tools, right click and choose Inspect Element. And instead of going to console like we've done before, because I'm not getting any errors, but I just want to use this to demonstrate, I'm going to go into this debugger. And in the debugger, I'm getting the file, and if you're not getting the file right away, you can kind of drill your way down to the name of my JavaScript file is app.js. So I'm here in my app.js. And let's say things aren't working the way I thought they should. And so what we can do is we can set what's called breakpoints. And so if I'm not sure things aren't working out, I can set a breakpoint. I'm going to set a breakpoint here on line 7, for example. And I'm just going to demonstrate what it does. So we can see there's a breakpoint, and when I clicked on it, I get this blue arrow that's showing up. So let me just demonstrate what's going to happen. So when I click on my Stitch, the event listener is going to fire. I have to do a double click. So I'm going to double click, and what you're going to see is it says paused on breakpoint. And what's happening is that the code stopped at this line. It didn't render line 7, it's rendered line 6, but not 7 yet. So this is a way for me to step through my code and watch line by line exactly what the code is doing. So that's another way to help us troubleshoot. For example, if I hold my cursor over image width right now, I'm getting that value 150. If I hold my cursor over image alt, it's undefined because this line hasn't run yet. So the code, the browser has stopped on line 7 without actually using it yet. If I hold my cursor over my image, you're going to see that that is an object. And here's all of those properties that are, or methods that are associated with that object. And one, of course, is width, which is 150. So if I hold my cursor over width, I'm getting the 150. That's the property of that image object. And that's what's being put into the variable. If we look here, we have my image, and then alt should be here. There's alt. This variable doesn't have that alt value yet because we didn't run it. And so what you can do is in our debugger here, I think I'm going to have to spread this out a little bit to see it. There it is. So in our debugger right here, I guess it was at the bottom, we can, and just for simplicity right now, I'm just going to deal with this one item that says step. Which one did I want to do? Step over. I guess it's step in. They all word a little bit different. Step in. So step in is going to be the very next line. So if I click on this, step in, F11, now what's happened, you can see this line 8 has a highlight around it, or has a border around it, which means that the code has stopped. It ran line 7, so now line 7, I can see what was put into it. What else did you expect? My image source has not, variable has not been filled yet because that line didn't run. And so I can either just click on step in again to run the next line. Bar properties should be blank because that hasn't run. You get the idea. So this is a way for you to walk through each line and kind of get into the brain of the computer. What are you doing line by line? Another good way to help you troubleshoot. And if at this point you're happy, I can just hit this arrow that says, just finish out what you were doing and continue on. So, and that's what it's doing. But you'll want to remember, if I run this again, as long as I have that breakpoint there, it'll continue to stop. So maybe you've figured out your problem. I don't want the breakpoint anymore. So make sure you either hit this button here that says deactivate all breakpoints, or just come in here and click on it and remove it. So that way when I double click on it again, I think I probably have to reload it. Oh, there we go. So let's reload and double click. So now we're good to go. So just kind of an FYI or informational, that is another great way to walk through your code line by line, especially when we start looping through things, that we can see every iteration exactly what the browser's doing, so we can figure out what might be going wrong. So hopefully that helps.